The Google Pixel Buds had a rocky start, but have the recent firmware updates fixed all of the issues? Hey s'mores, I'm Shannon Morse, welcome to Morse Code. The Google Pixel Buds, these little guys, were announced about a year ago, but they finally hit stores back in April. This was the second generation of Pixel Buds and are truly wireless in-ear earbuds that come in 4 different colors, including Oh So Orange, Quite Mint, Almost Black, and these ones, which are clearly white. The MSRP for these little guys are $179. Now in the box you get the USB-C to A charging cable, the case, obviously, the earbuds, and 3 ear tip sets for small, medium, and large. The medium ones are already attached. To switch them out, you just pull off the medium-sized tips and then you push in new ones into place. I do recommend trying all the different sizes on to see which ones fit comfortably and snugly into your ears. If they are too small, it can create some noise leakage, but too big and they will hurt to wear for a long time. When you wear these in your ear, the buds have this little nub that sits right inside your outer ear to help them stay in place. It definitely helps since they are so round. Without the nub, they would just kind of fall right out. And even though I find them pretty comfortable, if I was exercising, I would probably choose my Samsung Galaxy Buds Plus, since they tend to stay a little bit better in my ear. But if you do use these while exercising, they are IPX4 sweat and water resistant. The earbuds themselves are super lightweight and they are relatively small. The shape of them does not necessarily look comfortable, but they surprisingly are. I find myself wearing them for like hours and hours at a time without difficulty. The charging case, which I've been throwing around on screen because I like to talk with my hands, is a bit like a little egg. That's kind of what it looks like, and it supports both USB-C and Qi wireless charging, so you can use it with wireless charging pads or with phones that support wireless battery share. The lid has a magnetic closure and it feels kind of spring-loaded whenever you flip it open, and the buds magnetically slip into the top to charge via some little contact points inside of it. There is an LED on the outside of the case that glows orange whenever it's charging, and it also glows white. Now, connecting 2 devices is pretty simple. You just turn on Bluetooth, hold the button down on the back of the case to put them into pairing mode, and then tap the Pixel Buds in your Bluetooth settings. On devices like a Samsung phone, I'm prompted to download the Pixel Buds app from the Play Store to control their settings. But all of those settings are also found built into Pixel phones. So if you use these with a Pixel phone, it's really, really easy to get started. Switching between devices, at least Android devices, is very, very easy once paired. I just choose them out of my list of Bluetooth items in my settings page and you're good to go. So while switching is easy, you can't pair 2 devices at once, so that's a bit of a con. Now, when in use, Google says the earbuds will last up to 5 hours when listening to audio. The charging case will give them up to 24 hours of listening time, and whenever it's charging, it takes about 10 minutes to get up to 2 hours of playtime. Now, I have not worn them for 5 hours straight. The most for me has been about 3 hours, so they didn't die on me. Though I did notice that the buds lose battery at different intervals. So for example, in the screenshot, the left one is at 82% while the right one is at 78%, even though they were charging together. Apparently, this is due to them switching power-hungry functions back and forth between the 2, and they should level out over their battery life, so they should die at the same time. They do connect over Bluetooth 5.0, and I'm honestly glad that I didn't get these in hand until now, because when they first came out, whoo, it was a doozy. The connection issues were terrible and everybody was talking about them. So on that note, lots and lots of folks had problems with them losing connection every minute or so, and they would resume connection. Or one would lose connection and then eventually resume while the other one seemed to stay connected. So while the audio quality was good, the connection issues had people basically tearing these things apart in reviews, as well as a subtle background noise that you could hear. It kind of sounded like static or white noise. You could hear this whenever music was paused or they were idling in your ears. And when I first took mine out of the box and started using them, I had the same issues. Tons of data loss or packet loss, connection losses, so I got pretty annoyed when I was wearing them. But to Google's credit, they did release a firmware update which seems to have fixed the problem with the connection issues, though I still hear some of that subtle background hum or that static or white noise whenever they are on and I'm not playing any audio, though it's not noticeable whenever they're actively being listened to, like whenever you're listening to music or podcasts. podcasts. So of course that brings up the question of how do you update them? If you go into your Bluetooth settings while connected, and then choose the settings gear icon for the Pixel Buds, and then go to more settings, and then firmware update, you can see if they are up to date or not. When I first got mine out of the box, they were not. So they still had outdated firmware. They are now running on version 552 for all three of the components, even though when I first got them, they were starting on version 159. So I definitely had a lot of versions to install. Yeah, so it took a while. Updating firmware is not a clear process either. I have mine set to automatic updates. The buds and the case need to have sufficient charge for the firmware update to take. Now, if one is available, I found that I needed to plug in my case via the USB-C cord, put the Pixel Buds in the case, and then leave the lid open for several hours before it would actually update to the newest version. I don't know why that is, why it took hours and hours for it to actually update, even though Google says it takes 10 minutes and you can use them while they're installing the update. I tried that, just, letting them install while they were in my ears, but it didn't work. So I had to stick them in the case, open the lid, and then let them sit there for like a day until they would actually update. It was very weird. It would be cool if there was some kind of function in the settings that said, install newest update now, and gave me a status bar for each of the buds so that I could see if it was complete. But there's really no way to tell if the firmware update has actually successfully completed without checking your settings over and over. So that was kind of an annoyance. Also, there is no active noise cancellation, so they won't be great whenever you are on public transit. Each bud has a custom 12mm dynamic speaker driver, and they have passive noise reduction, which is great when I'm working in the office next to my husband, who has to take a lot of conference calls for his job. It muffles his speaking enough so that I can pay more attention to my research and writing, for example. There's also a spatial vent for in-ear pressure reduction and spatial awareness, which is great if you need to hear what's going on around you and you don't want to have to deal with any kind of pressure sensitivity. One neat feature is when you take them out of your ears, they automatically pause music and they automatically resume whenever you place them back in your ears. That's pretty cool if I'm listening to like a podcast and I don't want to miss any of the context. Audio quality was more on the treble side, as in lower frequencies were not as strong, but vocals and instrumentals sounded really crisp and really clear. If you do want more bass, like I usually do, then you can turn on bass boost in the settings, and this really helps those drivers sound more equal between lower and higher frequencies. I highly recommend having bass boost enabled because it really does increase the quality of sound for music. I'm so glad that they updated and allowed for that option. Like Pink Floyd just sounds hollow without it. Bass Nectar and Arc Patrol, same thing. Janelle Monáe 100% needs that bass boost. If you're listening to something like Taylor Swift's Folklore, the bass boost still gives it more of a full sound, but it's not as noticeable since her music really focuses on those acoustics, much less bass. But they allow you to use Google Assistant functionality. They allow you to make calls, use translation assistance straight from the earbuds. They have dual beamforming microphones and voice detection accelerometers built in to help with clear voice pickup. Now, Google Assistant was very responsive in my tests. You can control it even if your phone is locked, which you can choose in your settings, by holding down on either bud and saying your command, or just saying Google and then saying your command. It will also do a continual conversation so that you can interact with Assistant without having to wake it up multiple times in one go. Calls were acceptable. My husband did notice a lag whenever I was talking to him, and he said that I sounded slightly robotic, and so did he. They work, but they aren't the best for call quality. The Pixel Buds can also help you translate if you are traveling. So if you ask Google Assistant, help me speak Japanese, it will open the Translate app on your phone, and then you can start speaking a conversation. Your phone is still going to do all the translating via the app though. You can also use the buds to transcribe English to French, German, Italian, or Spanish. I kind of wish this was a bit more advanced. For example, if I could control the whole conversation straight from my buds without having to touch my phone and have Assistant actively translate Japanese into my ear holes, that would be killer, but they don't do that. Now, everything that I have talked about in this review can be controlled with the little capacitive touch pads on the Pixel Buds, which is basically the white part on the outside. You can tap to play or pause, hold to talk to Assistant, or swipe backwards and forwards to turn up or down the volume, just to name a few. Now, these settings are not customizable, but I found them to be quite responsive responsive. A few other features that they include, they also have sharing detection, so you can loan one to a friend and listen to music together at different volumes, each of them being controlled separately. Adaptive sound will optimize the volume based on the noise in your surroundings. This really works well whenever I'm walking past construction areas, for example, here in Denver. And if you lose one somewhere, you can always make the buds chime separately to find them, and they do get pretty loud. They will also work with Find My Device too, so if they are connected to a device, you can use Find My Device to find them if you lose them. There's also some experimental features in the settings like attention alerts that will lower the audio if they detect something like a dog barking or a baby crying. So I feel like that might be good for parents. So I would say that the Pixel Buds have lots of features built in, but I don't think that they are 100% for the price. People still have connection issues that I've read up about online on Google's forums, even with the firmware updates. And they are not the best for calls, though I do think that listening to music is very enjoyable, especially for long periods of time, given that I feel like they're comfortable to wear. The coolest part for me has to be controlling assistant, completely hands-free. I feel like that's one of the best things that you can do with these, especially if you're constantly doing things with your hands. Like if I'm recording B-roll of something and I have my hand on the focus ring and then my other hand holding up my camera, and I can't necessarily put it down or I'll mess up my B-roll video that I'm trying to record. If I have these in my ear, I can just use the wake up command for the assistant and ask it something if I need to get context for something online. It's pretty cool. Now, before I go, I did want to say if you are new here, make sure to subscribe, and a huge thank you to my newest s'mores on Buy Me a Coffee. That includes Craig M. And on Patreon to each and every one of you. Comment below and let me know what truly wireless earbuds you are interested in, and if there's any in particular you would like me to check out on this show. Thank you again to my s'mores for subscribing and for watching. I'm Shannon Morse, and I will see you soon. Bye, y'all.